Somewhere at sea today, a vigilante attack bomber is launched from a Forrestal-class aircraft carrier. Neither rain nor snow nor the darkness of night can stay this warrior from its appointed task, for it contains the best of man's miraculous black boxes, which were designed to seek, find, and demolish a target in any kind of weather and in any kind of war. It can climb to 90,000 feet with a 2,000-pound bomb load and penetrate enemy territory at twice the speed of sound. Its mission completed, the Vigilante returns to its mother carrier, which by now has traversed a considerable piece of ocean. The airfield from which the bomber was launched will have become invisible to retaliatory forces. And tomorrow's strike will be flown from a new, surprisingly new location. The Vigilante is merely one weapon in Naval Air's arsenal of offensive might. In this 1961st year of our Lord, the Vigilante stands ready 24 hours of every day with the Sky Warriors, Sky Raiders, the Skyhawks, the Crusaders, the Phantoms, the Furies, the Demons, and the Tigers in America's untiring effort to keep the peace. Skilled and effective as naval aviation might be today, it has not always been so. In the beginning, there were the pioneers. This is Curtiss test pilot Eugene Ely, proving in late 1910 and early 1911 that the airplane could land aboard and fly from a seagoing platform aboard a ship. Skeptics said it couldn't be done. From that humble beginning, naval aviation progressed. By the time of the Great War, the mission of naval aviation placed emphasis on seaplanes to hunt and destroy enemy submarines. The seaplanes developed by the Navy provided the necessary endurance for sub-hunting. These seaplanes patrolled the seas, found and killed submarines. Naval aviation emerged from the war as a proven entity. The battleship was still the backbone of the fleet, but the inexorable processes of change had been set in motion. USS Langley was the Navy's first serious attempt to marry the ship and the airplane. The mating was a success, so a new generation of fighting ships began joining the fleet. After Langley came Saratoga, Lexington, Ranger, Yorktown, Enterprise, Wasp, and Hornet. As newer ships reached the fleet, more modern aircraft were being designed and built to fly from them. Meanwhile, the progress of marine aviation paralleled that of naval aviation. Wherever there was a brush fire to put out, marine pilots and planes were ready. They flew from Haiti, Nicaragua, Samoa, and China. They flew from airstrips and from carriers. And when they were not engaged in a fight that was in progress, the Marines practiced for the big one they knew would come. When the war cloud burst over Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the Navy faced its meanest hour. Its backbone, the battleship line, rested in the mud, twisted and burning. Fortunately, no aircraft carriers were caught in the surprise raid. The way back was a long one. Carrier striking forces became the main line of offense in the painfully slow, bitterly fought island-hopping campaign which brought the enemy to bay. Naval Air acquitted itself nobly in the battles of the Coral Sea, Midway, Guadalcanal, the Philippines, and in every other campaign in which enemy ships or aircraft exposed themselves to attack. By the spring of 1945, 1,000 plane strikes by carrier task forces against the Japanese homeland were frequent. The aircraft carrier, as an individual unit, had given way to the carrier task force, in which several flat tops pooled offensive and defensive might. The war was won. But naval aviation did not fold up when World War II ended. Carriers helped to bring the boys home from the war, and they helped to protect the peace. Most of the carrier planes were mothballed in the desert sun of Arizona for future use if needed, but no one thought the need would come soon. Development of newer and better aircraft, including jets and helicopters, continued. The Navy knew that the last war's equipment would not be adequate for the next. Then war, like the inevitable tax collector, came once more. This time it was June 1950 in Korea. And once again, the Navy and naval aviation were ready to fight. Reservists and regulars manned aircraft held over in some cases from World War II. And they manned the Phantoms and Sky Raiders and Panthers that had entered service between wars. Naval aviators flew more than 250,000 sorties and made 850,000 runs on targets, expending 176,929 tons of bombs, 271,890 rockets, and 73,888,000 rounds of ammunition. After Korea, Navy carriers again protected the peace. And once more the designers came up with newer and better planes to fight the next war, when and if. As newer and better airplanes were made, new weapons were designed. A family of carrier airborne missiles were introduced to give faster, deadlier destruction ability to carrier-based planes. Unmanned aircraft, called surface-to-surface missiles, bearing the shapes of aircraft, were designed and placed in service. Many of the Navy's most important victories were won by a show of strength, but without the use of strength. Who among us can forget Indochina, Lebanon, the Formosa Straits, and Suez, where the show of strength made by naval aviation put out the fire before it could blaze bright and spread? This, then, is naval aviation today. New dimension to the traditional role of sea power. Power ready when needed, where needed. Limited power for a limited war. Or the most massive power in this nation's arsenal, should that day ever be forced upon us. Power self-contained, ranging the oceans of the world, independent of fixed bases, its safety in its planes, its screen of ships, and its ever-changing position. Power for peace in a free world.